Oh, now let's talk about the many tales of Letecia Stauch. The jury in the stepmother murder trial got to hear a brand new chapter to her ever-evolving storybook on Wednesday. The jury heard testimony on 3 separate mental health evaluations that were ordered by the court prior to Stauch going to trial. All of them concluded with the result that she was competent to stand trial. Dr. Jackie Grimmett met with Stauch back in December of 2020. This is several months after Gannon's body was found. And Wednesday, she outlined her meeting with the defendant, which included a very unique conversation about vampires.
She engaged in some behaviors. I think I mentioned in my report that she was humming to herself. She was putting her head on the wall. Her affect, which is what her expression of emotion, didn't really seem to fit what was happening. She seemed happier than she should have been. And she, at some point, turned around to talk to somebody else and then turned around to tell me what was happening.
What was that all about?
She said that she was talking to a vampire and then resumed conversation with me.
Did you talk to Miss Stauch about her experience with vampires during your forensic interview?
I did.
Tell the jury about that.
Miss Stauch introduced a vampire called Justice. She said that there was a button in her cell that she could summon Justice, Jasper, perhaps Patrick, if I remember correctly. She said she had been introduced to vampires when she lived in Alaska previously. And they used to go door to door like Jehovah's Witnesses. And she didn't really offer them in any kind of meaningful way, like wasn't explaining anything or trying to use that information necessarily. But she certainly referenced them throughout the interview.
Did she tell you where she got these names for these so-called vampires she's talking about?
She directed me to the movie Twilight.
And did you find out that these names were from the movie Twilight or the book series involved in Twilight?
Yeah, a few of them for sure. I'm not familiar with the series myself, but I Googled. She talked about a vampire council, and the name of the council was taken directly from that series. And then a couple of the names for sure came from there as well.
What relevance, if any, did that have in your evaluation? The fact that she's talking about vampires that came from a movie?
Well, certainly if somebody's talking about vampires and that appears real to them, that could signify that they're experiencing a mental illness. So I looked further to see, I'm looking for consistency again. So it was notable that she said that she had been interfacing with these vampires since Alaska, but she made no mention of them to the previous evaluators. And she also didn't mention them throughout her jail stay until several months in.
Well, what's the significance? It's one thing to say that I talk to vampires and I see vampires. What's the significance of her saying clarification? Well, these vampires came from a movie.
Right. So that's not consistent with a mental illness. It sounded like a fabrication. If people are talking to vampires, I would expect them to have their own unique aspects to them and something unique to the individual that would make sense in a greater scheme of how they see the world. And it just seemed like she was conveying a story essentially from fiction.
The doctor says it sounds like a fabrication, and what a fabrication it is. Let's talk about that. I want to bring in my guests, Dr. Jason Piccolo and attorney Rich Nichols on the program this morning. Oh, Dr. Jason, let me start with you on this one. So we hear the doctor who did the second competency evaluation, this was done December 2020, saying that she thinks she's faking this vampire talk. And when she asked her where the character names came from, she said, from movies, the movie Twilight. And all I could think about was how, we just heard Ted Rowlands talking about how one of the attorneys, Lori Vallow's attorney, gets his knowledge from movies apparently, and now we're seeing it in this case too. So kind of ironic. Your thoughts on this, please?
Well, I'm not that type of doctor, but I believe she is competent to stand trial. It's like, look at it this way. She's reaching for straws, and it's a lot easier to develop a story from either a book and movie. And especially if you read or watched them numerous times, you could reflect on that and make that into your own experience. You see this a lot of times with suspects are always grasping for some sort of way out, another excuse for what they've done. So now she knows Twilight. She knows the movie. She knows the books. She's probably read them a million times or watched a movie a million times. So when she's developing the story, it seems more realistic in her mind that she can make it other people believe that it's true. If she came up with a completely different dialect, a completely different, scenario that has nothing to do with movies and nothing to do with anything that's already out there, maybe you could look at it a different way. But in this instance, she's grasping on what she knows.
Yeah, the movie Twilight, that is just hilarious, funny, but not funny when we know what happened to little Gannon, right? She stabs that child 18 times, shoots him 3 times, and claims that she was insane at the time of the incident. But there were 2 doctors who evaluated her in her sanity evaluation. So we know sanity and competency are different things. Competency is today, is somebody able to understand the charges against them and assist in their defense. Sanity is the backward-looking inquiry. At the time of the offense, did they know right from wrong? And so here she had 2 competency evaluations and then a sanity evaluation. So she was evaluated 3 different times by doctors. And in that sanity evaluation, both doctors agreed, yes, she is sane. She was sane at the time of this incident. And so there's that. I want to play another clip, and Rich Nichols, I'm going to go to you on the other side. This is where Dr. Jackie Grimmett, the forensic psychologist we just saw who did competency hearing number 2, is talking about how Stauch tells her she's able to bring Gannon back to life.
Did she talk about Gannon and Gannon's death?
A little bit, yes.
Did she talk about feelings that she wanted to bring him back to life?
Feeling that she could bring him back to life.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to ask you that. Tell the jury about that. What did she say about feeling that she could bring Gannon back to life?
She described holding some religious beliefs based on a local pastor of a church here in Colorado Springs who purportedly had brought somebody back to life at some point in time. And she believed that Gannon could meet that same outcome based on those religious beliefs.
Sounds kind of weird to me. I mean, how did that come into play in your evaluation?
Well, it's an unusual belief that I obviously explored further. Clinically, it kind of appeared to be a bit delusional to me. However, religious beliefs, by definition, are not delusions.
Or did it appear like a big fat lie? Rich Nichols, what do you think about this piece of information Ms. Stauch gave to the doctor?
Well, I think the prosecutor probably asked the doctor one too many questions. You see, the DA in this instance, in this case in Colorado, the DA has the burden of proof to prove that Ms. Stauch was sane at the time the murders were committed, that she did understand the difference between right and wrong and committed the murders. On the first part of the questioning with this expert, she indicated that Ms. Stauch had referenced some television characters, which obviously made it appear as though, well, yeah, she's sane, she knows what she's talking about. But in the second round of questions, the DA is actually saying, well, what she's saying is sounding kind of weird and sounded kind of crazy. He didn't use the word crazy, but those questions, he asked one too many questions. He shouldn't have asked that question, because the last thought in the jury's mind now is that, well, maybe she is insane. She's talking about hearing back from the dead. So I just think he asked one too many questions. And if our audience is wondering why she pled not guilty by reason of insanity, it's because if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity, she'll avoid the death penalty. Why? Because this crime was committed prior to July 1 of 2020. And that is the day when the death penalty was abolished in Colorado. So any murder committed prior to July 1, 2020, the defendant would be subject to the death penalty unless they plead not guilty by reason of insanity, which would mean she'd just be subject to being probably in a mental health institution for the rest of her life. So it's very important for the DA to prove that she was sane, understood the difference between right and wrong at the time the murders were committed.